Task 6, Software. This section is designed to help you figure out installation order and which software applications you should install. Installation order matters. We typically install the applications that are the most pickiest about having a clean operating system first. Then we install applications that are less choosy. Finally, we end our installation with software that is not particular at all about the state of the operating system. There are curriculum-specific software that we also want to take under consideration. So I've made a diagram that kind of helps explain a little bit about each application set and what professions might use them. The following sections after this one will cover how to obtain, download, install, and authorize, if needed, certain software applications. So to start with, software installation is a fairly linear process. So the first thing we need to think about are the prerequisites. Prerequisites help ensure these particular variables commonly responsible for failed installations are not responsible for failed installations in your case. So this can include configuring power management. This prevents your computer from falling asleep during a software installation. Most of the time this should not happen, but in rare instances it does. For example, the monitor doesn't want to wake up and you can't tell if the installation is done or not, which may cause an improper restart resulting in a corrupted install. In some cases you can get the software off or do a repair install to fix it, and in other cases it may require a system reformat. So to avoid these kinds of problems, we go in and we configure our power management to make sure the computer and the monitor do not fall asleep. Next, we configure our folder options. This allows you to see details about files and folders. Many of the tutorials that you'll see will have these folder options pre-configured, so to make sure that you see what is inside of the tutorials, we go through and we configure this. Disabling Trend Micro temporarily. Sometimes software installation can fail because files get quarantined. This is a common problem with Autodesk files. The next one is enabling .Net Framework 3.5. And .Net Framework 3.5 is kind of a framework that a lot of software applications are still using. They haven't quite caught up to the new version yet. The next one is configuring the time zone. Some applications will not install because you're in the incorrect time zone. Sometimes, after you install software and then you try to configure it to the correct time zone, and then the application will fail because it thinks you're trying to turn back the clock, especially for applications where there's a 1-year license and it thinks you're trying to manipulate the license to get more time out of it, and then the software will stop working. So the first thing that we do after we do all of the prerequisites is we're going to install a web browser that is capable of handling large downloads such as Google Chrome. So this section is going to cover how to download and install Google Chrome so that we can download very large things like the Autodesk installation files. So this section is going to cover how to obtain, download, and install, and how to configure Google Chrome. So many of you probably don't use Google Chrome to its fullest potential, and this section hopes to allow you to see all of the other things that's really cool about Google Chrome so that you can really maximize its potential. The next thing we do after we get Google Chrome installed is our Autodesk Applications. So this section will cover how to install Autodesk Applications. So now that we have a browser installed that is capable of handling large downloads, we can actually start downloading these large downloads. So our Autodesk products are basically our CAD products. Today they're more geared towards building information modeling, so you'll find that a lot of these CAD applications are fairly huge. So we mainly use at the college Civil 3D, 3D Studio Max, and Revit. Some of your curriculums may require plain vanilla AutoCAD, so I would pay attention to that. So the first section here talks about how to log in, and this should be a relatively straightforward process, and this is probably the thing that will take you the longest. Most of the time, it doesn't tell you that your password has expired. You kind of have to figure that out on your own. So if you haven't logged into AutoCAD or Autodesk for an entire semester, chances are your password has expired and you need to go in there and reset it. The next section covers how to download it. You want to download it to wherever it's going to go. You don't want to have to move it. I find because the files are so large and that when I try to move it, for some reason it gets corrupted. I don't know why that is. So there's some tips here. Wherever you download it, that's the place you want it to go. You don't want to have to move it again. The next one covers how to do the actual installation and then how to do a first run and activation and then patching if needed. The next application, of course, is our Adobe software. So before I go into my Adobe software, you're probably wondering, if I'm an architect, which one of these do I need to install? Well, if you're an architect, you're definitely going to need Revit. You may need plain AutoCAD as well. It probably wouldn't hurt to get that installed. And I don't know if your department's going to use 3ds Max. It probably doesn't hurt to have it installed. If you're an architect, you're definitely not going to use Civil 3D. If you're a landscape architect, you better have Civil 3D installed. In fact, if you're a landscape architect, I would probably install all three of these, because chances are you're going to be learning about all three of these somewhere along the lines in your technical module curriculum. If you're an interior architect and product designer, I would probably do 3ds Max and Revit as well. But if you're not 100% sure, let's just say you're just running a little bit low on hard drive space, then you can always ask your studio professor which one of these applications you think you might need. Alright, so back to Adobe. So of course we're going to, in 6.4, cover how to install Adobe products. Unfortunately, the only version that is available now is the Creative Cloud. I heard that you can get the disk set, but you have to pay kind of an arm and a leg to get it. So it's really not worth getting. So the cloud version is the only version that is available. The Computer Lab will have an old Creative Suite 6 Master Collection version in there. So maybe you're starting in your second year and you find that, well, I probably won't use Adobe too much, I'll just use the lab. That's something to take under consideration. The lab will have a very old version installed. And then the subsections here will talk a little bit about the Adobe products, how to obtain the Adobe products, how to install Adobe products, how to patch Adobe products. And then some of you may get the little Acrobat bug where after 30 days it won't open anymore. And this has to do with some sort of licensing issue on Adobe's end, so you'll have to install some sort of fix. You may or may not have this bug. I know that the Computer Lab particularly has this bug, so hopefully they will have that patched. The next thing that goes in is Microsoft Office. So this section covers how to install Microsoft Office, and this application is actually offered through a KSU site license, so you do not need to purchase this. Through the KSU site license, you will be permitted to install it 5 times, so in 5 different places. So you can do it on your home machine, your work machine, your school machine, your tablet, and your laptop if you wanted to. So you get up to 5 installs. And then if you decide, well, I need it at work, and then a couple months later you decide, well, I really don't need it at work, I need it on another computer, you can actually remove your license from your work computer and move it over to another computer if you want to. So you get a total of 5 that you can kind of float around. So this section covers how to log in, how to obtain the Microsoft Office software, how to install Office, and updating Office. And then activating Office if needed. The next one is antivirus. So at the university we actually use the Trend Micro antivirus software. It is a university policy that everyone, this includes faculty, staff, and students, use Trend Micro on their computers that they plan to bring to campus and plug into the university network. Of course, you can use this on your home computer as well. So K-State does have a site license again for the Trend Micro antivirus software, so you will not need to purchase this. So this section is going to cover a little bit about the antivirus software, the fact that it's a policy, we all have to do it if we like it or not. So if you bought your own, you're going to have to uninstall it because two antiviruses together don't work very well, so you're just going to want to have one antivirus installed. How to obtain the antivirus, how to install it, how to update it. And then the next piece of software that we're going to install after Trend Micro, after our antivirus, is called 7-Zip. So 7-Zip or 7Z allows you to extract very large compressed files. So some of you may or may not have noticed that the Windows default compression utility is not so good at extracting or compressing very large files. Well, 7Z is very good at doing it, and the best part about 7Z is that it's free. It's also very good about giving you errors in the compression or decompression where the regular Windows unzip utility doesn't exactly tell you that there was an error during unzip process. So you never know if you have everything that you need there or not. So this is why I recommend installing 7Z. So this section talks about how to obtain 7Z. I recommend paying very close attention to this section because there is kind of like a fake site that will take you to a site full of malware, so don't go there. So make sure you click on the right link. So this section kind of covers that a little bit, and then the next one talks about how to install it. It's fairly small footprint, it's not very invasive, so a lot of people I find like this. If you're going to be using GIS at all, I highly recommend installing 7Z. I would say that it's a need item and not a want item if you are a GIS user. The next one is SketchUp. So how to install SketchUp is what this section covers. This is a non-parametric, free-form, vector-based 3D modeler used for creating basically quick sketches or diagrams. Some people like to use it to make some 3D diagrams. It's basically just a quick sketching program, nothing very fancy here. A lot of people oftentimes start here and then they import their model into another program so they can do materials and textures and so on and so forth. This section will cover how to obtain SketchUp, how to install SketchUp, and how to authorize SketchUp. After that, some of these are a little bit optional, such as Google Earth. Some people prefer Google Maps. Again, this is more personal preferences. A lot of students really like to install Google Earth because it's a kind of a useful application for locating your project site and referencing elevations when you need to. The installation on this one is pretty straightforward, so the section is not very large. The next one is VPN. Now, I will tell you that I don't know what the state of the network will be in the remote facility. If the state of the network, when I'm saying the state of the network, I'm referring to the external connectivity. In other words, your connectivity out of the building and into the building. Of course, inside the building, you're likely going to have very good connectivity. In other words, you can talk to each other very well, but we don't know what it's going to be like for you to connect outside the building and connect into the building. So there's a couple of scenarios here. Of course, the first one is if you have very good connectivity on and off the building, then VPN will likely be something that you might be interested in doing. And what this is it allows you to remote connect to your computer in your studio from home. So some of you may find this very useful, especially if you don't want to work in the remote facility. Now, if the state of the network of the remote facility going on and off the remote facility is very slow, then this is obviously not going to work for you. So this section will cover a little bit about exactly what VPN is and kind of why we use it. The next section will cover how to obtain and install VPN. And then finally, the last section will kind of give you a crash course on how to use VPN. Next, we have other potential applications. So there may be other curriculum kind of based additional software that you may need to install, and we recommend that you kind of consult your course syllabus or your professors that you're enrolled with to find out exactly what other applications that you may need to install. So for example, you may need Rhino, you may need Grasshopper, and you may need other types of applications. These other types of applications should work at this point in time of the install. We've not had historically any problems with Rhino being installed after everything else is installed. So you should be good to go here. If you're in landscape architecture, you may need Eon Software View installed. And if you do, that is something that you're likely going to want to install at the very end. So this is a good point to install Eon Software View if you are in landscape architecture. Again, please consult with your professors to make sure that you're not making an extra expense when you don't need to make an extra expense. So everything that I've covered up to this point is either free software, cheap software, or software we know that everybody needs. Kind of common denominator software. So once you're all done with this, then you're pretty much at the end of your software installation steps. So that's pretty much what task 6 is all about.